So, next little topic that we're going to be doing is all about sexual reproduction, and it's really important that you guys are very mature with sexual reproduction. No, I'm just joking. But so, pretty much sexual reproduction is the process where this happens here, where we have fertilization happen. So yeah, if you never did this, you had no childhood. Then from the office, false. Your parents did that. Life only exists after fertilization, formation of the zygote. Pause the video here and have a go at these 3 quick questions, and we'll go through them together in class. So in the study design, we're still in Area Study 1 of Unit 2. We want to talk about how an offspring from 2 parents has a unique genetic identity. That's really the most important part of sexual reproduction. But also we want to talk about the biological advantage of sexual reproduction, specifically the genetic diversity in offspring. We're also going to go through different types of sexual reproductions because it's quite interesting, and it actually links in lots of ideas within biology. So I'm going to ask you, how does this happen? So how do we get this happening? How do we get this happening? And this happening? And this happening, all right? And what I'm talking about here is obviously, how do we get the production of offspring, okay, from 2 parents of the same species? And why do we eventually get some differences in those offspring? Okay, we're going to discuss that. So, sexual reproduction is the genetic contribution in the form of what we call gametes, okay? And gametes, what they are the sex cells, which can be broken down into sperm and eggs, if we're talking about mammals. So how do we get, so the genetic contribution in the form of gametes from 2 parental contributors to their offspring. It's the first thing that your parents did, they gave you these gametes and gave you life, okay? And sexual reproduction leads to what we call inheritance, all right? Not this kind of inheritance, but genetic inheritance like this. All right, so let's talk about sexual reproduction in animals, okay? So in animals, the female gamete is the egg cell, or we call it the oocyte, oocyst, or the ovum, okay? And the male gamete is either called the spermatozoa or the sperm cell, okay? So here we have a really clear view of both the female gamete, which is this one in the middle here, this one to the side, and some of those male gametes swimming around. So gametes are produced in an area that we call the gonads, okay? The female gonad is called the ovary, and the male gonad is called the testicle, okay? All of these cells, whether they're the gametes themselves or the cells of the gonads, are what we call germ line cells, is because mutations in these germline cells lead to potential changes in your offspring, okay? There was that same information. So within the gonads, the cells that give rise to gametes through meiosis, which is the process we're going to talk about next time, are called the germ cells. So we usually talk about one female, one male. Okay, and no, we're not talking about social issues here. Usually in biology, in humans and other animals, the case is that we have one female and one male, but it's not always the case in all animals. Some animals don't do this, and rarely is actually the case in terms of plants and fungi, okay? For example, the garden snail is what we call a hermaphrodite, all right, which means that it can produce both the eggs and the sperm, both male and female together. Let's talk about some different types of hermaphrodites because they're pretty interesting. We have what we call simultaneous or synchronous hermaphrodism, is when the organism has both the sperm and the egg producing organs at the same time, and this is like worms. We can have things like sequential hermaphrodism, which is when the organism has one gamete producing organ at a time, but then due to certain environmental conditions swaps to other gamete producing organ. Okay, so it pretty much goes from male to female and female to male. All right, and this is actually the case with clownfish. So let's quickly watch this little video about Finding Nemo.
You remember how we met?
Well, I try not to.
Well, I remember. Excuse me, miss. Can you check and see if I have a hook in my lip?
Marlin!
Oh, you gotta look closer because it's way in here. Here he is. Cuties here. Hook in my lip.
Marlin!
Oh, you gotta look closer because it's way in here. Where did everybody go?
Here he is. Cutie's here.
Coral? 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 There. It's okay, Daddy's here. Daddy's got you. It's okay, Daddy's here. I promise I will never let anything happen to you. Nemo. I promise.
So, the simple answer to this, what should have happened in Finding Nemo, is that in clownfish, they do what we call sequential hermaphrodism. And so, Marlin, who was the non-dominant male, okay, and when his wife passed away, okay, he would then actually become the dominant female of the group, and they usually don't just live in pairs. So one of the undifferentiated males or undifferentiated individuals would actually become a non-dominant male. All right, so usually we do have one male and one female. So even in hermaphrodites, the gamete used for reproduction is usually, but not always, comes from different animals or plants, okay? And this process, that coming together of the male and female gametes, is called fertilization, like we said, which is here. And fertilization can either be external or internal, all right? So external fertilization is quite simple. Really, you just have a massive amount of gametes just completely thrown out into the environment. It really can usually only happen in water. The reason why is because if you just leave your gametes in the corner somewhere, it's pretty low chance that it's actually going to be able to meet the other version of the gametes. All right, if you ever go scuba diving or snorkeling near coral, for example, you're very likely really to be swimming in a bunch of male gametes. Internal fertilization, on the other hand, it's a different process, a process that really drastically improves the success rate of sperm meeting an egg, okay, but it actually requires the really costly task of copulation. Now, what's really important when we're talking about sexual reproduction, just like asexual reproduction, is the advantages and disadvantages. It's really easy to remember because it's actually just flipped on its head. So whatever is an advantage for sexual reproduction was a disadvantage in asexual reproduction. So in terms of disadvantages, there's lots, okay? So sexual reproduction is costly for both in time and energy consumed, okay? Producing gametes takes a lot of energy, a lot of time, okay? Organisms are often left really defenseless, both in the process of producing gametes or in the process of copulation. Many organisms have also evolved really ridiculous adaptations. If you want to have a look at the birds of paradise, they're a really great example of this. And these adaptations just have a sole purpose to just increase their chances of copulating. Okay? Resources are really overspent in trying to get a mating partner, all right? So pretty much what I'm saying is that dating sucks. The advantage of sexual reproduction is that genetic diversity is really great, okay? Life on Earth was really simple, really bacterial until sexual reproduction came along and gave us the opportunity to, for example, start walking on land, okay? So really all of the diversity we have on Earth can be lent to to sexual reproduction.